Hi everyone, welcome to today's discussion. We're going to be talking about Washington state taxes and expenditures. So how much money the state gets, how it gets that money, and then what it spends it on. All right, so we know that there are these three major types of taxing philosophies. There's regressive taxes, where it ends up that lower income people end up paying a higher percent of their income on taxes than wealthier people. Then there's flat taxation rate, where everyone, no matter how much money you make, pays the same percent of their income in taxes. So it's spread out. And then there's progressive taxation, where not only do you pay more because you make more, but we also charge you a higher percent in taxes, meaning that you pay substantially more in taxes than lower income people. And I put this on this, we did this in the last lecture as well, but I put this on this continuum, requires like these two shift tax burdens more towards lower income families, and progressive shifts it more towards higher income families. All right, now that we have that and these are in the correct place, think about where you think these types of taxes will fall on this continuum. Will they be more regressive? Will they be kind of flattish? Or they be more of a progressive idea? All right, pause the video, think about where you want to put those, hit play again, and then I'll show you where they go. All right, so you're back. Let's do this thing. So first of all, let's start with sales tax. It's one that we know is a regressive because people, whoops, I have to actually get out of that first. Sorry about that. So sales tax, we know it's over here with the regressive side, but we don't really know exactly how regressive. Now, because wealthier people tend to buy more stuff that have sales tax, it's not perfectly regressive. So it's a little bit shifted on that right side of regressive here, because wealthier people will pay a little bit more than lower income people in sales tax. Flat fees. This is one that's super regressive. Here, no matter how much money you make, the cost to get a driver's license is $35 for everybody. So that really is a very regressive tax. And then property tax. Again, this tax is going, the wealthier you are, the bigger and more expensive house you typically buy, but it doesn't keep up with the amount of money you have. So for example, if you make 5 times more money, you don't buy a house that costs 5 times more. It only probably costs 2 or 3 times more than the other person's house. So you do end up paying more in property tax. So that makes it less regressive, but doesn't keep up with your salary, and it definitely doesn't go beyond that increase in your salary. So it's still going to be way over here on the left-hand side, but it might be a little bit more like at the far edge of regressive. All right, income taxes. Now, income taxes are the main way that we get progressive taxation, because here we know your income because you're reporting it. You're saying, hey, I made this much, and then we're saying, okay, because you made more, we're going to charge you a higher percent. Income taxes can be flat. They're never regressive, so we don't intentionally charge people with lower incomes higher percents of their income in taxes. That ends up happening because of these other types of taxes, not because we designed it that way. All right, so business taxes. Now, business taxes can be anywhere in the middle here as well. They can be, a state can choose to make them progressive, or they can choose to make them flat. Most states err on the side of this sort of middle ground for business taxes of like, hey, it's 23% tax for all corporate thing. It isn't broken down like if you make more money, you pay a higher percent. It's usually a flat percent across. So these two are more progressive-ish, so they're over on this side a little bit. And then these are very regressive, meaning shifting towards lower income families paying a heavier burden of taxes. Now, in states where these are the primary taxes, that state's going to be a very regressive. It's going to really push taxes onto lower income people. In states that rely more on income taxes, they tend to be a more progressive, where the wealthier people are paying a larger share of the taxes. All right, so that's that. Let's get to the next part. Okay, so here's the Washington State revenue broken down for us. So revenue is money you're taking in. So this is taxes and grants from the federal government. It's all the money coming into the state. So here, sales tax makes up about 40% of tax revenue for Washington State. So this big part here is all sales tax. And again, that's a heavily regressive tax that's going to shift the tax burden more towards lower income people. To help reduce that, Washington State, most groceries are not charged sales tax in Washington State. That way we're not hammering people for the food they're buying. Now everything else they buy, yes. So gas and prepared food, things like restaurants, clothing, all the other things you buy in life, their necessities, are still have a sales tax on them. So all those things hit. We just carved out groceries because it felt super unfair to charge a regressive tax on the food you eat. Property taxes, and then the next one. So they make up about 20%. Again, still a heavily regressive tax. And then other charges. And a lot of these are fees and business charges as well. Again, on that regressive side of the tax scale. And the reason Washington State does not have really any progressive taxes hardly is because the Washington State Constitution prohibits the use of income tax. So the Constitution was written back in the day. For some reason, the people writing it did not like income tax, so they just banned it for being used. So unless that changes, it's going to be really hard for Washington State to change its current situation of being a regressive tax state. All right, in fact, Washington has the second most regressive tax structure in the U.S. Only Florida is more regressive. And a regressive tax structure might make a little more sense in Florida because a lot of their income comes from people visiting the state because it's sunny and they have beaches. So they'll charge a heavy sales tax on the kind of things that tourists will buy. So things like hotel room stays and travel around and those kinds of things get a heavy sales tax charged to them. And that might make sense because you're kind of tapping into not your residents, but wealthier people coming to your state who are vacationing. And here's the index from most regressive, number one's most regressive, which maybe isn't a good thing, well, it definitely isn't a good thing, all the way down to the least regressive is way down here. And we can see this graphs that we're looking at here, as we go up this side here, we're getting people with more and more money, right? So higher incomes, lower incomes here, top 1% is here. And anytime you see this graph dive off like this, that tells you right away that we have a regressive tax structure, that we have a lot of taxes being charged on the lower income people and less taxes on the higher income people. So part of what you'll be doing in one of your assignments is you're going to be taking a look at some of these graphs. So I'm going to come down to this website and I'm going to scroll down here until I get to this ITEP Tax Inequality Index, and it lists all of them. We can look at Washington State real quick as an example. And you can see that we are heavily, even more so than the average that we saw earlier, we're heavily regressive. So we go way down here. And here's the reason why. Our sales taxes, you can see how aggressive they are. They're even more aggressive than the overall. Really low percentages for the top 1%. So the top 1% of earners only spend 1.6% of their income paying sales tax in Washington State, whereas the lowest 20% are paying 10.9% of their income. So out of every $10, a lower income family is going to pay one of those dollars to sales tax. That's a ton of their budget on an already thin budget. And so the top 1%ers, they actually pay more sales tax than the lowest 20%, but it just eats up less of their budget because they have so much money. Okay? And then here, property taxes. Again, it's not as regressive. You can see it's not as regressive as a sales tax, but here it's still a regressive tax. We still have this downward trend in the numbers. All right, let's get back to it. And then, so here's the expenditures. So we just talked about how Washington State collects its money. Now this is how Washington State spends its money. The number one thing that it spends their money on is health care and Medicare, or Medicare, which is healthcare. About 40% of the Washington State budget goes to helping out people, lower income people, pay for healthcare. Yay. Education. About 20% of the Washington State budget goes towards funding education. And this is primarily high school and elementary schools, public education, but some of that is also going to universities. And then the third biggest chunk is the benefits for state employees. So this is teacher salaries, governors, state troopers, any state employees out there. Their benefits in terms of health care and salaries, retirement, all of that stuff. 15% of the budget goes to paying for all of those people. And that shouldn't be there. I apologize. I forgot it was there still. And so that's what we're spending money on. And the other parts of it, safety net programs. So these are things that are helping people, like when they go unemployment or with extra food when they don't have it. Infrastructure, that's for building roads and bridges and things like that and maintaining them. And then interest paid on debt. So the Washington State actually can borrow money, and that's the amount they're paying in interest. So 4% of the budget each year goes to just paying interest. And then there's all kinds of other little things that the state funds that are in this category of other. All right, well, good job today. I think you maybe hopefully got a good idea of how Washington State gets its money. It's a very regressive tax state, and then also how it uses that money. Have a great day.